Welcome to the Women in Leadership Body, Mind, Soul, and Business podcast. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Heather. And together we are working to connect women in leadership and business, empowering each other, improving the health and wellness of our community, body, soul, and mind, connecting to the heart and soul of who we are and what we do.
Welcome! This week we have Diane Rambo, an amazing woman and entrepreneur who kind of paved her own way in the world and brought what families need and her ambition and things together into one piece. So I'd love for you guys to meet her. She is amazing. Diane, go ahead and introduce yourself.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in. My name is Diane Rambo. I am an autism strategist as well as a mom of two, one who is on the spectrum. He was diagnosed at the age of 3. Now, what started me on my journey, I literally started out as a travel agent. I had a corporate job, and then, corporate job just kind of took a dive when COVID hit. So with my son, he really inspired me to transition into what I'm doing now, which is an autism strategist, as well as an autism travel expert. And I learned that families wasn't comfortable traveling, and I knew that was a struggle for us. Just a tiny hint, because we've been traveling for so long, and so we unknowingly knew how to overcome some of the things that kind of bothered him or overstimulated him. And so once I realized families weren't really ready to travel, I transitioned into adding in strategies for families to help them be more confident, build their relationship up with their child, and that trust to be able to travel, because even going to a grocery store was challenging. Sometimes we would just leave the grocery cart. I've done that a couple of times where I was like, you know what, I don't like the looks I'm getting. You're kind of having a meltdown that's kind of going a little bit too long, and I don't want to be looked at and judged as if I'm a parent that doesn't know how to handle my child. So I've left a couple of grocery carts behind before, and even going to the
I don't think
mall.
that any of us get that thought process through, right? We're like, I cannot get my child to calm down in this exact moment. We're going to leave. I don't think about everyone else judging me like this isn't working. My kid is done. We're done. Bye.
Right. But in some aspects, it was like embarrassing almost, because I'm like, oh my God, all these people, all the whispers, and you subconsciously hear it, even though you don't want to acknowledge it. And we don't know how much that really truly internalizes, and especially for moms, how that makes us feel. We already feel like we are not parenting properly, or we don't know how to parent.
I cannot count the amount of times I've been told, like, oh wow, you need to learn to parent.
I was like, wait a minute, since when was there a manual? You never sit here and be like, okay, and let me go pull out the parenting manual. Oh, let me go pull out the special needs parenting manual, because it is different. It is very different. And once I made that realization, especially when COVID is really when the transition started, because we did distant learning. And with my son, I could never leave his side at all when distance learning was in. And we all know school is about 6.5 hours long. And I was like, oh my God, just imagine if I had to go back to work. Daycare did not have the staffing required. They actually already didn't know how to handle my son, because all they did was put him in younger classes, which did a disservice to him, because he needs to be with his peers to really model what his peers were doing. Good or bad, it's still modeling. It's still a way of them learning. And also I learned that he taught me so much. I learned a lot about myself during that transition period. And so when I made the decision not to go back to corporate and pursue my travel business, not only full time, but also transition into helping other moms into really building that confidence up, because I was in denial. I know so many other parents, whether you're moms or fathers. I only can speak from a woman's perspective. I've seen how his dad interacts with him and know how his point of view might be, but I don't want to put that generalization out there because I'm not a man. But from a woman's perspective, it affects us in so many different ways that I was in total denial for 2 years, 2 whole years. And so he was diagnosed at 3. So that means now 5 years old is when I started really implementing simple strategies using his strengths to really overcome some of the challenges he had. My son was nonverbal. He was having a lot of meltdowns. Sometimes he would have meltdowns and tantrums in one, and those were the terrible ones.
That's awful. I feel you, babe.
Yes, and he wasn't even eating solid food. So I was like really concerned that he was not getting his nutritional value every single day. I was like, okay, vitamins, can't give him enough. I'm sorry.
You can't, and you can't, because it doesn't process the same way in the body. Yeah, absolutely.
No.
You can't supplement enough. Yeah, I hear you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, when I started to really acknowledge my fear that I was projecting onto him, because he was like, I can do this, I can do that, but he wasn't really displaying in a manner that I would consider neurotypical, as what like my daughter did. And so I started to study him, if you will. I started to study what he liked. So he had 5 basic things he liked: numbers, shapes, colors, letters, and I always forget the 5th one, but it was 5 things. And I literally took those things and transitioned into our daily routine. So if I wanted him to eat a solid food, for example, I would cut it into a shape or a letter or a number. And his daycare provider was like, oh my God, you take the time to do this. I'm like, look, this takes preparation. I'm not an artist, but he eats it.
Yeah. Because
And
then it's the shape that he enjoys. And it's like, oh, I'll try that.
And he's like showing everybody. He's like, this. He's like excited because he knows what it is. And he's like, do you know what it is? And so, and then he'll just, eat it. Like, okay, I'm gonna take this piece off, and now it looks like this. And so it was like a creative way for him to eat. And what really transitioned him to eating, but not only eating, but speaking, is really traveling. And going to different places not only gets him out of the comfort zone of being in the same place, same time, same routine. It kind of lets him know that life has a disruption in some way, shape, or form. And you're not always going to have access to your everyday same foods. Now, we tried to accommodate him and make sure we brought certain snacks. We brought certain foods if we could refrigerate it and heat it up. But we started to wean him off of that kind of structure and say, okay, now we're going to start going places. They're going to have different foods. If they don't have what you eat, guess what? We're going to have to try something new. So it took some time and took repetition, but it finally broke through to he was like, wait a minute, there's different people, there's different, ethnicities out there, there's different cultures, there's different funds, because everybody's type of fun is different, right? He was like, wait a minute, I'm starting to discover new things. And so now he's to the point he's eating meats, he's eating vegetables and fruits. He's even asking, Mom, can I taste this? Can I try that? And even when I ask him what's for dinner, because I kind of give him a two-way thing. I'm like, what do you want for dinner? And then sometimes I'll give him 2 options, and then he has to pick out of those 2 options. And sometimes I don't even have to give
options with structure. That's super important. Like they want to feel like they have power, but they don't want endless power. They need it confined for them. That's totally, my son's like that. He was like, don't give me open power, but I do really want some control somewhere. Like,
and he loves that decision making
practice
ability.
Yeah.
And so sometimes he'll be like, well, I want, a little bit of broccoli, and I want a little bit of potatoes. And then he'll even say, oh, chicken nuggets. We're on chicken nuggets now, but I got to find something that's not spicy. Which I gotta find something that's not peppery. It's spicy to him. And just to see that transition and breakthrough that I had, and now the connection we have, and now he's asking me why questions, what questions, where questions.
That's so exciting.
Yes. And he's even like talking to kids on the bus now. He's like, look, my name is, or what is your name? And then he'll forget to tell him his name. But at least he initiates the conversation. He's like, can we go play? And now he's with his classmates. He's like, hey, Cameron, come over here. Let's play this. And they actually do come over there. And we just had parent-teacher conference, and his teacher said that some of the students are now, they've gotten used to some of his mannerisms, that now one student actually addresses him he makes this sound. and it's like, and that's the sound he makes. So now the other kid greets him in the same sound.
That's so cute. I love how kids connect like that. That is
I love
adorable.
it. How
Yes.
accepting and
Yeah.
open that is. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yes.
They really can grow friendships. I
Mhm.
mean, there's sometimes it feels very dark and like
Lonely.
your kids are never going to grow friendships,
Mhm.
but they really can.
They
And
can.
and they will in their own time
Mhm.
when they
Yes.
find the right people.
Yeah.
Uh,
My
yeah.
son, who's also on the spectrum, he's 14 and just really started developing friendships over the last year and a half or so, like actual friends who he calls and talks to, and they spend time outside of school and things like that. That's new, and he's 14.
Well, and mine's 17 and just doing it too. Like,
Yeah.
so, they each do it at their own time. Before it was all chosen friends, like mom's putting you with this person, you guys will like each other, right? Like he's like, this is the first time you didn't pick my friends, mom. Like
They're
it's
choosing their own friends.
And that's a big
yeah,
deal to them. It
it
really is
is.
because they have the decision-making power to just say, hey, I want to choose this. No one is telling me otherwise, and it's okay.
Mhm.
And I love that they get to grow into that because you do eventually want them to have their own independency, whatever that may look like for them.
Right.
And because we're not going to be here forever. And I really had
Exactly.
to put that in perspective because I'm like, dang, if something was to happen to me, especially during COVID, how many people did not
How
get
many
to
of us
survive out
had
of that?
had those thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
What skills have I taught you that you're gonna be grateful for tomorrow?
Mhm.
exactly. You know, are you going to be able to dress yourself? Are you going to be able to bathe yourself? Are you going to be able to go out and go somewhere, whether it's school, whether it's to the store without having to say, I'm lost. And that's one thing a lot of people now, they're like, oh my God, your son is gifted. He memorized all of these stops. I'm like, he knows all these streets.
Mm.
He knows what connecting buses go where. He knows how to use the app to find the bus, how to
Awesome.
look and track where the bus is, because sometimes the time may say one thing, but then you look on the map, there's no bus. He's like,
Yeah.
oh no, we're not gonna be able to catch that one. We have to catch the next one. So just teaching him those basic life skills, it was really critical because you never are promised tomorrow. And
Mhm.
you want to leave this world knowing that you instilled something into them. Because again,
Mhm.
parenting doesn't come with a manual, no matter if your kids have special needs or not.
Mhm.
And we
Right.
both have to learn from each other because every kid is different, whether they're
Mhm.
on the spectrum or not. They're all different.
Right.
And we have to learn that.
Right.
So Diane, you actually help parents. You have a process that you take them through, and that's one of your programs. But coming up, you have an event coming up. So you want to tell us a little bit about your introductory offer?
Yes. So I have a complimentary masterclass. It's called Autism, the Masterclass. And literally every word, every letter in the word of autism stands for something that we're going to cover. So you're
Okay.
going to get 5 days of core content, and then we're going to have some bonus days as well as Q&A. And it's going to be totally all virtual. It starts on November 14th. And then it's going
Mhm.
to be the second week of December. So we get
Mhm.
2 master classes this year. And we're going to unpack exactly how to really create the strategies necessary to be able to overcome your fears and build that confidence in relationship with your child so that you can go out here and say, hey, we are creating a better day each day amongst ourselves. And now we are going to implement that into the world because understand that in therapy, it's great, but it's a controlled setting.
Mhm.
Life is not a controlled
Mm.
setting. And so we're going to unpack that.
It wasn't
And
until I personally had in-home therapy, counseling, and a wraparound program that we bridged that gap. So I'm really excited to see that there's more tools out there for families, and that can teach the parents, right? Because we can't take it personally when our kid won't do something. It's not about
no,
us. And it's
Mhm.
about
no.
their overwhelm and their sensories
And
and
what they're going
what is the
through.
checklist for them.
And they might still be holding on to something from years or months or weeks or days before.
Yes, that onion peeling, I call it. I don't know what you call
Yes. And it's
it.
usually something small that
Yeah.
we think is small, but it's really big in their world. And they're
Mhm.
like, no, since you did this, I am not going to do this. Like, it took my son a whole year to get over the fact that he went through a slide. My son's a daredevil. He's been that way since birth. And he wanted to go on this big old slide in Colorado Springs when we was driving here to Vegas. And even the bigger kids were coming out of it crying because they didn't tumbled a certain way and hit their head.
Oh,
He
oh,
did the
those
same thing.
slides. Oh,
Yes.
sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he came out with a big old lump. And it took him a year to overcome that fear
Mhm.
of going in a tunneled slide. It had to be uncovered.
Mhm.
And so they hold on to little things like that, even though he was like, no, I want to do this. I'm going to do this. You're going to let me do this, or I'm going to sit here and cry the whole time. So we let him do it, but I didn't think Dad was going to let him do it by himself.
Right? Dad's like, sure, go down it.
Go for it, bud.
Did it by
I'm over
himself.
this.
After we watched all the kids coming out crying, we're like, I'm like, take him up there, but no, he let him go by himself.
So these events you have coming up is to help parents learn the skills to work with their kids so they can travel, so they can go do things in a public setting amongst
And by
the
travel, we
chaos,
mean even just to the grocery store.
right?
I love that you
And-
start just like traveling to the grocery store.
It's a thing.
It is a thing because you have to pack all the good, things that are
Mhm.
keep them calm, things that
Yeah.
keep you calm. Believe
Mhm.
it or not, we project our fears on our kids so much that we don't really recognize that we're doing so.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh my God, my son can't do this. Oh my God, my son's going to act like this. And then be a complete opposite. And it's like, oh, this time is me. That's why in doctor's offices, sometimes when you go get a major thing done on your children, they tell you can't come in the room. No matter what age they are. Like my
Yeah.
son went and got some cavities filled. They were like, oh, Mom, you can't come back there because kids act different when the parent is around. And it
Right.
is true. It holds true.
Mhm.
And so we're going to unpack how you can overcome and know what triggers you, because there can be things that trigger you that you might not be aware of. And then you in turn put that energy onto your child. And then that could be what causes them to go into their meltdown or their tantrum or,
It's like
acting out.
when your kids are little and they trip and fall and you go, and then they freak out.
Yeah.
And then if you stay calm, they're like, oh, I just dust myself off I go.
It's like, wait a minute, I'm gonna go play with this kid over here. Hold on.
Right.
We did the we actually, when you're learning to ride a bike, we did I fell down happy dance.
Oh.
Because it was gonna be a thing, right? So we just made up like a little happy dance. Oop, I'm learning to ride my bike. We're doing a happy dance. I fell down, just
Dust
because
ourselves
dust
off and
ourselves
try
off
to
and get back on, like because we were trying so hard to teach bike
teach new
riding
skills.
and
Mhm.
teach the skills of like, you're gonna fall down. It's normal. It's okay.
Yes,
We
because
get
that's
back
one
up.
thing
That
they
doesn't
want to
mean
do.
we
They want to
quit.
give up so easily.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
like, you want to encourage them, but you don't want to overdo it, because then
Mhm.
they're gonna be like, oh no, I'm really gonna shun away from it because now you're doing it a little too much, wanting
Mhm.
me to do this, and I don't want to do it. So that repelling,
Oh,
I don't want that apprehension. And
Mhm.
even kids that are neurotypical do the same thing. We just have to turn it around and say, okay, how are they viewing it? How do they
Mhm.
really truly feel about that? And one thing my son's teacher had really communicated well with me this year is he really talks about his emotions now, which
Mm.
is something he really didn't address at first. And now he's really communicating, Mommy, I'm angry, or Mommy, I am sad. And one time he told me he was frustrated. I said, what's frustrated mean?
What does
And
that
he
mean to you?
literally, yeah, he told me, because that's one of the things that we worked on was his vocabulary and him understanding what certain words mean, so that he can understand when people talk to him, that's what they're trying to communicate to him. Because what he may think
Yeah.
is funny or welcoming, like he likes to get really close to you in your face. And I
Mhm.
try to explain to him, well, everyone doesn't really like that closeness.
It's a little
They love
intrusive.
space. Yes.
Yeah.
But he thinks that that's okay, and he thinks it's so hilarious. Again, he thinks he's a YouTuber. And so I try to explain to
So
him,
cute.
certain words. They don't like that.
Mhm.
And now he's communicating. He's like, okay, so and so was upset because this, and this, or so and so said that they were sad because this and this. And I said, oh, he is truly starting to understand what they mean
That's
and how they look.
great.
Yeah. So,
That's
it took
awesome.
time. It took for him to mature a little bit too. He's only 7 now,
Mhm.
but maturity does play a little bit of a factor in all of this. So we have to remember they're kids. They're growing kids. We're growing with them because we got to grow and understand how they are, no matter if you got multiple kids or one. My kids are way far apart in age.
Right.
So it's like I started over. But you can see similarities among my kids. One is neurotypical and one's with autism, but you can also see the differences as well. And I was like, okay, what I did with my daughter, I can't do with my son because he
Right.
thinks of it in a different manner.
Mhm.
So that's
Ah,
definitely what we're going to
yes.
unpack and learn in this master class. And I'm super excited because I've been putting it off, and I'm like, you know what, let me just do it because everyone says I make things very simple. Everyone says that I talk in a manner that is welcoming, and people just love how I just communicate the resources to them. They're like, wow, I didn't know this existed. Even with traveling, there's certified autism centers out there where their staff, 80% of their staff, and that's a big number, are really trained to be able to handle your child. And it's like, oh my God, now staff members recognize and understand what autism means. They understand how to handle a situation. There's no more, backlash on that. So I think that's really important to know because that may get you feeling a little more confident in going to certain destinations. And then you'll be amazed how they will actually react to them going to somewhere they first didn't want to go, but as soon as they go, they're like, oh my God, I want to go again. Can we go again? I'm like, yes, we
Can
can.
we go again? Isn't that
That's
the
exciting.
best?
It's nice when our kids who are on the spectrum like show their emotion and get really excited because a lot of times they don't. Like my son shows his excitement it's like very brief, and
Mm.
it's minimal, and I've had reactions from grandparents and aunts and uncles, when he opens up a gift, they don't see the joy reaction because it's so brief.
Oh, they can't tell if he
They
liked
can't
the
tell if he
gift.
likes the thing or not, and they get all in their heads about it. And did he like it? Do I need to get him something? He's fine. He loved it.
Oh my
Just,
gosh.
you know.
So
So
on a story like that, so I remember one Christmas the kids were opening up presents and my son was so excited and surprised over shoes. And it was the first time he ever did that, really over, like super excited and like, what is this? Like he was like freaking out over shoes. I was just like, and later I was like, were you really that excited? And he was like, yeah, they're cool, mom. Blah, blah. I was like, I had no idea he wanted shoes,
Yeah.
but, and that was the only time that he did. I liked how the other night your husband was going to give her son a coat that he was, he likes it so much he wore it to breakfast this morning. Like I was like, oh yeah, he really likes this. So so she's like, oh, I'm gonna go watch. She got all excited because she knew that if she didn't go that moment and watch the excitement, she would miss that moment, right? So
Yes.
knowing our kids and knowing that, like,
So I was like, hold on, I'm gonna go watch while Dad gives him the.
she was so excited to go watch. Like it was so cool to watch her get to be the excited mom, like, so
It's those things you don't want to miss out on. It's like, oh my God, I didn't get that recording on this. Dang it. And it's super exciting to see them when they're in their most heightened emotion that you're like, oh my God, they do have feelings. Oh my God. They do look at things in a certain way. Same with my son. He likes these red pair of Jordans that his dad bought him, and he doesn't care if he can't fit them or not. He likes the fact it's red. He's gonna wear it no matter if it matches or not every single day to school. And he doesn't want to tie them. He knows how to tie shoes. He doesn't want to tie them because he's like, look, I'm too busy playing with my friends. And I just want them to see I have on red shoes.
The shoes are red. They're awesome.
Right. It's just so those awesome little things that bring them so much joy. And to be able to bring them that same amount of joy while traveling is so, so huge and so valuable, not only to parents, to them, and overall to have a good traveling experience is beneficial for everybody involved,
Right.
even the strangers at the store.
Right.
Yes, because a
Exactly.
lot of times they don't even know my son's on the spectrum. They're like, "Oh my God, he's well behaved." I said, it took us time to get to this place, and this isn't an everyday
does.
thing. This is just right now. I said, but we've
Yeah.
had plenty of practice, and he even looks at kids now. He's like, "Mom, that kid is being so loud," and I'm like, "You're a kid too." I said, you get loud at times too, especially if you get excited. So, I have to show him now he's looking at the world from his view. And now he's seeing what other people are doing. He's like, "Oh, Mom, that person is doing this." I say, "Yes, this is how the world is." And if he didn't see that, he would only know what's inside our small little apartment. And so I think it's very important for them to kind of see how not only other people act, but to see what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and then really just teach them how life goes, whether they want to participate or not, because they're going to have to participate in one aspect or another. It's just how, and what type of memory and legacy would they leave behind, knowing that, okay, this is the world. My eyes are open to it. I don't have to necessarily accept everything in it. I just have to know what my part in it is. And that's kind of what we want to teach them. We just don't know the best way. And that's exactly what this program is going to help you see is, first of all, do you even have that closeness with your child to where they're telling you everything? There's things my son will tell me that he won't tell his dad. There's things he tells his dad he won't tell me. But we have that relationship that he's always going to make sure he tells me something, whether it's then or later. And he's going to let me know, okay, this is the emotion, or this is how I felt during that time. And that is kind of really crucial, because we're not with them 24/7. When they're in school, we're not there. We want to know what happens in school. So when I ask him, "How's his day?" Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's I don't know. And I'm like, oh, that must mean something happened. If you
Still
don't
deciding.
Still deciding if
exactly,
it's good or bad.
Not
I didn't have
decided
that
if this was good or
relationship.
bad or not.
Or
Exactly.
Cute. I love it.
the reaction I get is
Typical, average,
yeah, basic.
basic.
It was basic, Mom. It was
Right.
basic.
Tells us nothing.
So we love
Zero information.
we love what you're
No.
doing with families and helping them learn the skills to be able to do these things. And your the courses that you're offering November 14th and the second week of December,
Yes.
whatever
And
date
they're
those are.
free.
It's
You're
free.
amazing. Like that's so
Yeah.
awesome. So it's at least like a 5-day long, about an hour and a half each day
Yes.
commitment, and that you're gonna want to be there because I mean, I don't want to stop this conversation, right? Like this is great, amazing information that I wish that I had access to when my child was
An
younger.
added bonus,
Like-
Diane is holding these trainings during school hours
Yes.
while your kids are at school. So you can focus on what you need to focus on to unpackage your triggers and things like that to work better with your kids on the spectrum. That's so cool.
That's
It's
very
so
exciting.
I love that so much.
It is so
yes,
cool.
because you're definitely going to work through some things, but we're also going to have fun, because this is our time. We got to let loose sometimes. So we're definitely going to have a little fun as well in this whole entire session. So I'm looking forward to it, to be able to present this information to you all, because it's some daunting information that is like, which one is true, which one is not, and
yeah.
and it's very confusing, especially if you never looked into it, or you're in denial and never looked into it like I was. I didn't really unpack what it really meant until I got over my own fears, my own denial. That's when I really started.
I think
really
too,
honing
you
in.
can get in your head like, why is this happening to my son, or why is this happening to my kid? And you get into that loop, and then you're into why, like a bad loop. It's not a good spot to be in. So
I was in that loop until my son was in like 4th or 5th grade when he was finally diagnosed. And I kept telling his doctors and stuff, this is not normal. And they're like, oh, he'll grow out of it. Or, oh, he's just a boy, or whatever. I'm like,
It's
no.
funny. Because that
No,
was
no, no,
my
no, no.
response to the
I like your
doctors in
face when
school.
I
I
said
was
that.
just
You're like,
like,
ooh, let me fight.
That's kind of what I would have
Mm.
been like. Oh, wait a minute, this is not right.
I kept going back. I changed doctors. I had many meetings with the school people for IEPs and 504s. I'm like, this is not working. This is yeah. Anyway, the best way to we're gonna drop your contacts information in the description.
All will be
attached.
there, and you can
But
sign
what is
up.
the best way for someone to get a hold of you to sign up for this event?
You can email me at Diane at NOAA, so NOA blueprint.com. That's the name of my program that launches after the masterclass. And you can even find me on TikTok, autism_travel. That's where most of my families are actually. And all my other social media platforms is Autism Life Coach Diane Rambo.
Awesome. Thank you,
Perfect.
Diane.
Yay.
We really appreciate you and everything that you're doing in the community to help families who just, if I had you in my back corner with these skills,
It improves
10 years
life
ago,
improvement. Yeah.
how much different things might look now for my family, and
Right.
so having those resources available to families is amazing. So thank you for being a resource for families and helping better the lives of uncountable people.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for inviting me to have this talk, because I think it's a talk that's undervalued a lot, especially even though awareness is out there, it's still undervalued. And we really need to get the awareness more up, but more so action on what can be done. Because a lot of times we forget that just because therapies aren't readily available, there's wait lists everywhere. There's still things you can do in the home. And that's exactly what I want to help you do.
Excellent.
And you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours reading like I did.
Or many or buckets and buckets of tears.
Right. That too. Right.
That too. Or frustration or overwhelm, or just wanting to just take a couple drinks extra.
Isn't that the
Get your
truth?
kid the shirt that says I'm the reason mommy drinks.
The only way I go to sleep.
On that note, we want to say thank you to our audience. Be sure to listen up next. We have a little tidbit from Susan and Greta
for our cause of the quarter this quarter with his AT for PD.
It's very exciting.
It is very exciting.
So thank
you
so
again,
much.
Diane, for joining us. And to our listeners, again, thank you. Can't do it without you. We love you.
Namaste. Mwah.
So we are Sue and Greta, or our trail names are Lilo and Stitch, and we are hiking the whole Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia, so 2,194.3 miles. And we're doing it to raise $50,000 or more.
Yes.
For Parkinson's disease research.
Yeah, through the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And we are doing it all in honor of my dad, her husband, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease back in 2010. So
Right.
And we all know so many people who are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and we are trying to do our small part in the world of Parkinson's disease to find a cure.
Thank you for joining us today on the Women in Leadership Body, Soul, Mind, and Business podcast. Please download the podcast on your favorite podcast player. We love you, and we will see you next time. Namaste.